hear me well?
Yeah.
Alright. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to the judges for judging my project. My project was titled the Soteria Project because Soteria is the Greek goddess of safety, and my whole project was about creating a safer environment for LGBT plus students in school. So a little bit of backstory about my project. I originally wanted to do something with the environment and like creating a safer environment in general and like go plants and that kind of thing. But I realized for me that wasn't a very realistic type thing. So I decided instead to create a safe environment for LGBT plus students because that's something very dear to my heart and something I'm passionate about. So that's how that came about. So as I said, my goal for this project was to create a safer environment for LGBT plus students. To do this, I created some informative videos, and then I also ran the GSA at our school, which is actually called the Gay Straight Alliance this year. But next year, we'll be changing it to the Gender Identity and Sexuality Alliance because that's much more inclusive and includes everybody in the LGBTQIA community. Then I have some quotes up here for you guys. The first one is, all young people, regardless of sexual orientation or identity, deserve a safe and supportive environment in which to achieve their highest potential. And that's a quote from Harvey Milk, who was a governor, and he was also gay, and that was our mission statement for GSA and my mission statement for my project. Then the next quote was, it's very dear to me, the issue of gay marriage, or as I like to call it, marriage, you know, because I had lunch this afternoon, not gay lunch. I parked my car in gay market. And that's a quote from Liz Feldman, who's a comedian, and whenever I got really stressed out about my project or very anxious or frustrated, I would go look at that quote and it would remind me to like keep going and continue doing it. And then the last quote I have is, I am enough of a realist to understand that I can't reach every child, but I am more of an optimist to get up every morning and try. And that's from Preston Morgan, and that was another thing I used to help me throughout my project because running the Gender Identity and Sexuality Alliance at school was kind of like conducive to that. It definitely helped me like get up every week and talk in front of this classroom full of people. I know I'm talking to more people right now, but try not to think about that. So a few like LGBT plus basics in case any of you don't know. What does LGBT plus stand for? It stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, intersex, and asexual. And lesbian would be girls who like girls, gay would be boys who like boys or girls who like girls. Bisexual is like just people who like boys and girls. Transgender is somebody who doesn't identify with, like their gender identity doesn't conform to the sex they were assigned at birth. Questioning is somebody who doesn't quite know their sexuality yet, like they're really not sure. Intersex is somebody who's like their chromosomes don't necessarily match up with the parts they have, like their sexual organs and that kind of thing. And then the A stands for asexual, which a lot of people think that A stands for ally, but it doesn't. Asexual is somebody who isn't interested in anybody like for having sex with them. They don't want to have sex. And then there's usually a plus at the end of that because there are tons of other types of sexualities and gender identities. There's pansexual, which are people who are attracted to everyone, pretty much. They're not attracted to pans, which for some reason a lot of people think they are attracted to pans, and that doesn't make sense to me, but it makes sense in their head. They're not. But yeah, the keyword for all of these, the definition for all of these, they're all people. They all have different identities or sexualities, but they're all people. Then what is the difference between gender sexuality is who you're attracted to, like sexually, like you want to have sex with that person basically. And then romantic attraction is your emotional connection with that person. So you can have both in a relationship, or you could have just one or just the other. They're not like mutually exclusive things, which a lot of people don't know about that, which is interesting. Then next was my mentor, who is Mrs. George. She works in the library as the librarian, of course. She helped me with a lot of my research near the beginning of my project. I met with her a couple times, usually during second period, because that's when I have study hall, and that's what worked for her. Although I was willing to meet with her anytime, because she's willing to be my mentor, so I could adjust my schedule for that kind of thing. She helped me find some articles in the very beginning, like when GSA started meeting, so that I had some things to talk about with our club, which was very nice because it's hard to join a club without having like discussion topics. Um, so she really helped my project reach its highest potential with all the resources she gave me. I really appreciate that. So the process for my whole project, as I said, I reinstated the GSA article, and then we created a couple videos to go along with that. So at first we formed the group. Well, I formed the group. I had to go talk to Mrs. Tenenbaum about that and fill out a little form, which was super easy to do. And since we've had the club before, it was really easy to just create it again. And these are some pictures from the club meetings. This was actually one of the last few meetings we had, because there were a ton of people there. Like the highest number of people we had at one point was like 30 people. There weren't enough seats in the classroom, so that was really exciting to me, because people actually wanted to like come to meetings, they wanted to listen to me talk. So that was awesome. This is one of the first few meetings we had. There weren't as many people. There are only 5 people in this picture, but there are like 2 or 3 others to the left there that you can't see because this picture didn't include all of them. But we all stood in a circle at one point, and we had M&Ms, and everyone had to pick out one M&M. I wouldn't let them eat them yet. They picked out a color, and then for each color there was something that they had to say about themselves. So it was kind of an icebreaker to get everybody to know each other. So like one of the things was like yellow, you had to tell us something about your childhood. It didn't have to be embarrassing, but just something about your childhood. Brown was like, what's your favorite TV show and stuff like that. Just things to like start everybody talking to each other, which was pretty fun. And then this was just another picture. I had consent to take all these pictures too. I'll let y'all know that. Then I advertised and like gained more members, which, as you can see, the first picture I showed was like most of the people, that were there. To advertise, I created a Twitter account because I'm really into Twitter, and I told my friends about it and had them follow it, and then I had them like favorite and retweet it, or like tell other people to follow me. But that was kind of hard to do just because like people didn't really know what it was yet. So I also created business cards and distributed them. I distributed them throughout the school. This one actually has a misprint. It says learn about the LGBTQ community, but we got that changed. So I had 200 cards, and 100 of them were ones I could actually distribute. And it has my phone number on it too, just in case if anybody like had questions and they didn't want to like actually come to the club, and they didn't want to like tell me who they were. Like that was totally fine. They could just text me and ask a question. I would have answered and not had any other questions about it. I understand that kind of thing. We discussed a lot of different things at the meetings, which was really fun. We discussed the mission statement at our first meeting, which was the Harvey Milk quote, as I said before, and then we talked about gender versus